Hello everybody, it's your host with the most, the best in the best, Harley Combest, and today we're going to discuss why exactly I've been gone this entire time. Actually we're not, because it's too complex for your feeble mind to possibly ever understand, which is why we're going to enlighten you here today with a reading, with some lovely erudite thoughts from a lovely work by Plato known as, you may have heard of it, The Republic. And we're just going to jump right into book 4 here, flying by the seat of our pants. Why? Because that's where I left off and that's what I read this morning, and so that's how it's going to go. It's my show, deal with it. Now, the first thing that this book really gets into is the discussion of the 4 virtues. These, of course, being wisdom, temperance, courage, justice. And these are largely political virtues, but let's see exactly what that means by getting right into the meat of this work. So we start off here, lines 428 to 429. They have an official name. I'm just going to call them lines. But the knowledge which resides in this presiding and ruling part of itself, the whole state being thus constituted according to nature, will be wise, and this, which has the only knowledge worthy to be called wisdom, has been ordained by nature to be of all classes the least. Now, going back to a previous part of this work, what exactly is he talking about? What exactly is this knowledge here? Well, it seems to me that it's about like, how exactly does a state deal with other states? How exactly does a state interact with other states in order to continue its proper mode of being? How do we get the greatest state? How do we get the greatest state? And that's something that they just call the greatest, but really the greatest state, that's just what they call it. How do we get that greatest state? Well, in order for a state to reach that state, the pun intended, Combest Creed number 247, never leave a good pun to go to waste. But anyhow, back to the topic at hand. In order for us to have a good state, which is sort of like the aim of the Republic, right? It's this whole, the whole work is fixated upon this idea of Plato's utopia, really, to sort of get at a scale of what justice might be looking at it from the scale of a nation state and trying to see it from that magnified image and trying to see how it possibly manifests itself in the individual. So with that in mind, we see that, states interacting with states, the knowledge which resides in this presiding and ruling part of itself, the whole state being thus according to its nature will be wise. And so it's this interaction between states, this proper, so what we find here is that wisdom is the knowledge of proper conduct by the ruling part of the self. How a state deals with other states, how an individual deals with other states. So wisdom, I guess, in this sense, in this Platonic sense, at least for now, at least as Plato defines it right here in Republic Book 4, is hey, wisdom is the knowledge of proper conduct by the part of ourself that discerns things. It's the ruling part of the self, the part of you that's conscious, the part of you that makes choices. It's the knowledge of that proper conduct applied, really. It's wisdom is the knowledge of the proper conduct by the ruling part of the self. And so with that, we move on to the second of these 4 virtues here, and this is discussed thoroughly in lines 429 to 430. It says here, the city will be courageous in virtue of portion of herself which preserves under all circumstances that opinion about the nature of things to be feared and not to be feared, which our legislator educated them and this is what you term courage. Courage is, and he goes on to say, courage is a kind of salvation of the opinion respecting things to be feared, and of what they are, and of what nature they are, which the law implants through education, preserved and not losing. And he goes on to state okay, it's this type of salvation that is, it's like this opinion is preserved, not losing one's opinion in pleasure or in pain, or under the influence of desire or fear. So he goes on to say, and this sort of universal saving power of true opinion in conformity with law about real and false dangers, I call and maintain to be courage unless you disagree. So we find here that, that courage is in fact the salvation or the perseverance of true opinion about real and false dangers. Notice that I said opinion and not knowledge. Why? Because there has to be a risk. There has to be a risk at play, you see, in order for courage to properly manifest itself. You wouldn't say somebody's courageous if they knew exactly what was going to happen and well, I mean, acted accordingly, you know. I mean, like, if you know that you are going to overcome the obstacle before you even reach it, somehow, then it's hardly an act of courage at all, now is it? But I mean, like, that's not the way that things work as they manifest themselves in the future, of course. So that is 2 of 4 done. 2 of 4. Moving on to, wait, I just sweating. Good stuff. It's not coffee, in case you all are wondering. There at the parish. But anyway, lines 430 to 433. Temperance is the ordering or controlling of... Oh, he goes on to talk about temperance, sorry. Temperance is, he says, temperance is the ordering or controlling of certain pleasures and desires. If the words temperance and self-maturity truly express the rule of the better part over the worse, so that better part of yourself over the lesser part of yourself, you know. And he goes on to say, the meaner desires of the many are held down by the virtuous desires and wisdom of the few. Wisdom of the few. Temperance was a sort of harmony in this sense. Temperance runs through all notes of scale. Play-Doh oftentimes likes to compare things, in discussing things like harmony to the works of an instrument, because why not? And it really does make sense as an analogy here. At least from my perspective, temperance runs through all notes of scale and produces a harmony of the weaker and the stronger and the middle class. Temperance to be the agreement of the naturally superior and inferior as to the right to rule of either, both in states and individuals. Now I hear that and I'm sort of like, you know, Play-Doh, sometimes people say you're a proto-fascist, and if you don't want to be called that, you should probably back away from things like naturally superior and inferior. But in this case, he's talking about like the sort of there's not much defending me. The lesser and the greater parts of yourselves is what I'm trying to get at here. Is what he's trying to get at here. Before he goes and discusses both in states and individuals. No. He has a point here. He's not talking about people. He's talking about well, back to that better and lesser part of ourselves, of course. So then, temperance is the mastery of the better self over the lesser self. So with that out of the way, we move on to courage. Well, now why do I keep saying that? I don't know. Look, it's just the way it is at this point. We're moving on to justice now, and so I can do it justice. Now, lines 433 to 436. You remember, so he says, you remember the original principle which we were always laying down. So remember, the Republic starts with them trying to find out what the heck is justice, right? What is this thing which seems to permeate through all of our existence, and to which we have to build a city to look for? I feel like you didn't have to do that. I feel like you wanted to, but I'm just going to go with it. So he says, you remember the original principle which we were always laying down at the foundation of the state. That one man should practice one thing only, the thing to which his nature was best adapted. Now, justice is this principle, or a part of it. He goes on to say, affirmed that justice was doing one's own business and not being a busybody. He goes on to say, if the 3 were discovered by us, okay, so like the 3 classes of things within the state, by the way, which he discusses earlier. So these are traitors, auxiliary, and counselors. So if these 3 were discovered by us, justice would be the 4th. Whoa, hold on. Nope, he's talking about. Forget I mentioned that. That's spoilers. Just ignore that. But anyway, those are about the 3. Those are about the 3 virtues, and he's like, okay, what's left is justice, because, oh my. But anyways, he says, the power of each individual in the state to do his own work appears to compete with the other political virtues, wisdom, temperance, courage, the meddling of one with another, or the change of one into another is the greatest harm to the state. So it's like, if you had somebody that was really good at carpenting, right? It was really, really good at carpenting, but he decided, I want to be emperor. And for some stupid reason, all of the people said he is emperor now, and was like, and he was trying to manage things using his skills as a carpenter to be an emperor. It probably wouldn't turn out right. At least that's the argument according to Plato. But we'll get into we'll find a bit of a conundrum with the thing here. Why exactly I have a problem with what Plato's saying here? Why exactly? As an American, I cannot let that slide. So he goes on to say that, okay, greatest harm to the state, and may be most justly termed evil doing. He calls it evil doing. So don't go and do something that you're not meant to do, because that is evil doing and will cause great harm to the state, and you will burn in hell for all eternity. No, not really. But he goes on to say, and so of the individual, we may assume that he has the same three principles in his own soul. This is where we get to the part that I was mentioning earlier that I didn't realize I wasn't supposed to mention earlier, which is like, okay, so Plato has these classes in society, basically, right? Not university classes, but like like Marx talks about the classes and stuff like that, yeah. But not quite like that. So you have the traders, the auxiliaries, and the counselors. So traders, of course, being like the craftsmen and stuff like that, the people that build the things. Auxiliary, of course, I think that's like soldiery, and counselors, of course, being the people in government. So he's like, okay, if I find these in the state, right? My whole point was to like, I want to build an entire state to find out what the hell justice is, right? And so it's like, okay, if I can find these three things that are present within the state, also within the individual in some way, and perhaps we can make a comparison here, and see exactly what to make of this whole case of justice here. But that actually goes on to the three parts of the soul, which he mentions after really getting into justice, because it's sort of just pushed aside for the moment here. And he goes on to say, take the quality of passion or spirit. It would be ridiculous to imagine that this quality, when found in states, is not derived from individuals who possess it. So going back to that idea, it's like, what is the state made out of? The state is made out of people. People are made out of what exactly? The soul. Plato goes on to discuss the nature of the soul, and so with this, he's saying justice is it's doing one's own business, it's playing one's game, it's playing one's role, it's taking up that duty to which you were assigned, and it's carrying that out to the best of your ability, But in doing so, perhaps unite the parts of your soul as the parts of the state are aligned to meet that definition of justice as a collective whole. But my problem with his definition of justice is that Plato appears to me to be too narrow in his definition of business, the role which God lays out for us in his will as are not so narrow in variety as Plato postulates. Really, the role that anybody has to play in the universe, it's like that can't exactly be accounted for within even the mind of Plato, perhaps even the mind of Plato, miraculously brilliant mind though it may be. And so he goes on to talk about this whole comparison of the state and the soul. The state and the individual, and that connected to the soul. He says the forbidding principle is so there's this part of ourself which wants to which leads us to logical ends, and there's the part of us that is not so logical, that does bad things. And Plato goes into talking about this. The forbidding principle is derived from reason, and that which bids and attracts proceeds from passion and disease. So he's talking about the duality of man. He's talking about the duality of man. In a way. but really, well, as we'll get into a bit, well, let's just get right into it. The one with which a man reasons we may call the rational principle of the soul. Of course, fools, I mean, like the feelings of the flutterings of any desires, the feelings of the flutterings of any desires may be termed the irrational or appetitive. So these two parts of the soul which we have here, the rational and the irrational, but that's not it, because like one of the things that he points out here is like, okay, what of passion or spirit? And he mentions the story about a guy named Leonidas. He doesn't want to look at a bunch of dead bodies of recently executed people. He looks at them anyway. And then like afterwards, despite his rational principle part not wanting to, he looks at the dead bodies and he rebukes his eyes. He says, "Look, you wretches, take you fill of the fair sight." That anger, that's what he's talking about, that passion or spirit that happens after the fact. So anger at times, he notes here, anger at times goes to war with desire as though they were two distinct things. Children exhibit passion before reason, and passion is also seen in brute animals, you notice. And so we have here, moving on from the four virtues, we have moving on from the four virtues, we have the three parts of the soul. It's not going to go 4, 3, 2, 1, don't worry, lift off. But three parts of the soul: the rational, the irrational, and the spirit or the anger. And this is actually connected to the chariot and allegory in Phaedrus, which is also quite interesting. And here we have the connection to the three parts of the state: the traitors, the auxiliaries, the counselors in the state. A connection of three parts here. Play-Doh is a big fan of numbers. I am too. Math major and all. Haha. Don't mean to toot my own horn, but it is a horn worth tooting. Mathematics is amazing. But anyway, yeah, okay. To lines 443 to 444, he goes on to further, he goes on to like, okay, so you have this building up, you have the four virtues, and you have like three parts of the soul, and then he concludes Book 4 with this wonderful line, 443 to 444, where he says, "Justice is concerned with prohibiting the elements within him from interfering with one another, or doing the work of the others. He binds together the three principles within him, higher, lower, middle note of the scale, and is one entirely temperate, perfectly adjusted nature. When he acts out, he carries out just and good action, and his knowledge over it is called wisdom." So you have, and it doesn't actually say here, but I put like a little note here that like in order for a person to do this, he needs courage to act out. And so what do we have here? You have the courage. You have yourself. Okay. So you have yourself prohibiting the parts that lie within you from interfering with each other and working together towards the good. And you restrain yourself in that aspect, and that's temperance. And any sort of act that you carry on out of that temperance, well, you could call such acts just. And because they're lining up along that way, they're just and good action. And the knowledge that you have of this whole process, this whole thing, of the why you should restrain yourself, that's wisdom. And in order to do it all, you need courage. And so therein you have the four virtues as laid out in Play-Doh, Republic 4. Book 4 of the Republic. There we go. Now you all have a good one, and this has been Classics with Combest.